Coach, did the bye week come at a good time after a couple games learning this team a little bit better?
Yeah, I think it was a good reset button after the Louisville game to kind of get back into the stuff that we do, get ready for a big opponent this week, obviously an in-state rivalry. So I think it definitely came at a good time for us.
Do you feel like you understand kind of your offense a little bit better after going through a couple games?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it was a tale of two different teams realistically, right, in terms of who we played and how we kind of came out. But I think in terms of the bye week, getting ready to really prepare back to some of the stuff that we did in fall camp will be huge.
We'll talk about Liberty a little bit. What do you see on film from them?
See a talented team, obviously, right? They're going to come up ready to roll, right? I think that's the biggest thing, right, is that a lot of people have been waiting for this game for a while, just kind of having the in-state kind of piece to it. But just in terms of what they do a lot of different things, right? You'll see them jump in and out of different fronts. You'll see them jump in and out of different coverages. At times on first and second down, they'll drop 8 in coverage. At times they'll bring, 5, 6, maybe even 7 people in blitz. So I think they do a good job of just constantly trying to stay fluid throughout their structure.
What have you kind of learned about rotating of the two quarterbacks now that you've had a week to watch film, a week to work on yourself as coach, as you were saying?
I think the biggest thing is really allowing them to play confident, right? I think that's the big thing, is putting them in a position to be confident, right? And I think obviously if you look at last week or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, right, that was hard in that specific game to do that with them. So I think making sure people get into a flow, I think, is probably the best way to describe that.
When you talk about getting into a flow, how much of that is just trying to make sure it's not too predictable when one's in versus when one isn't another, from a play calling perspective?
Absolutely. I mean, that's it at the end of the day, right? If you give tendencies, right, you got to make sure you take those tendencies away the next week. So part of it is, putting stuff on film to set things up. And then part of it also is making sure, like you said, that you're not getting this flow where, this individual person or this individual formation only does X, Y, and Z. And that's how it is really, regardless of personnel. That's how it is across the board. If you're in one formation, you run one play, well, eventually the defense is going to understand what you're trying to do and what you're trying to attack. So it really plays across everything, not necessarily from a position standpoint, but football in general.
Coach had mentioned after the game that obviously Sluka and Barnett, they're competitors. They're not going to want to switch when it's needed sometimes. So how do you make sure that that's not becoming a little bit unhealthy or toxic in the locker room or with them, and making sure that they're still ultimately going out there and wanting that win?
I think that's the biggest piece, is that we're all out there collectively to win the football game. And however you win, we're going to be happy at the end of the day if you win a football game. So, it is a lot because they do want to play every snap, right? And they do want to be the full-time person that is taking every snap because, you look at the quarterback position, unless injuries occur, typically across the board, with the exception of a few teams that play multiple quarterbacks, that individual is playing a lot of snaps. So just really the understanding that at the end of the day, there's so much stress that's put into that. This is a team game. You talk about the offensive line, there's not a lot of stats that define them. So it's really taking on that, kind of honing that aspect in and applying it across every position.
Yesterday, Wayne was talking a lot about just how deep this running back room is. Liberty's given up a decent amount of yards on the ground already this season. Just how important is it to have that deep of running back room against a defense like this?
Yeah, I think that's huge. And I think the biggest thing is that we've been stressing is yards after contact. And we've been stressing that through the bye week. That's a huge piece of it, right? Sometimes, right, it's going to be there from a hole perspective of just opening up. Sometimes you got to bring yourself and make someone miss in the hole. So having a deep room in general, especially in that room where, knock on wood, but injuries happen nonstop. You look at last year, I know I've said that before. So that's obviously the depth piece is going to really play into that.
We'll talk about the bye week. And do you feel, I asked Coach Kennedy this too, do you feel like it came at a good time now that you know your team a little bit better after a couple games?
There's never a bad time for a bye week. No, just getting healthy. I think, it was obviously a physical game on Friday night, but anytime after a loss, I'd love to play the next day, to be honest. And I think the guys are hungry to get back on the field. So just excited for Saturday. Hit somebody else finally.
Obviously, minus the 2 big plays against Louisville, you played really, really good football. What were things during the bye that you tried to clean up that you still need to get better at?
Yeah, I mean, you love hindsight's 20/20. You'd love to fix those 2 plays and you'd have a great game, but you can't. You got to live with the results of those plays, and the reality is we got to be able to make them in those moments because the air's thin when you're playing big time opponents in big games, and we know that. So just consistency and staying really, really detailed in alignments and assignments, and just keeping the physicality and the brand alive.
What challenges does Liberty's offense present to you guys?
A lot. Anytime you face a offense that's unique and a little bit different than the common college defense or offense. I mean, it puts some stress on some different guys. They try to make it a lot of one-on-one situations, and that's the goal of the defense, is not allow everything to be one-on-one, and that's what option defense does. It can create responsibility ball, and we don't want to play football. We want to play football. So just working together to create a sound scheme that allows our guys to play fast.
Is their offense, is it a lot different than most that you will see throughout the year?
I mean, there's elements that are very similar to other teams, but yeah, I mean, we don't see a lot of option football and the ability to, have to secure the quarterback, the pitch man, and the dive on every single play. So whether they're running option football or not, they have elements of it, and it makes you have to be aware that it could happen on any play. So it is different than most teams, but that doesn't mean we have to see it dramatically different.
Coach,
Go ahead, Chris.
Coach Chesney and DJ yesterday both talked about Ethan Vasco and just kind of what he brings in the run game as a quarterback. And I know you didn't get to face him last year like they did, but what have you kind of seen from him so far? How do you get ready to face a big quarterback that is very physical in the run game?
Yeah, I mean, he's a fullback with the ball sometimes, but he's got halfback speed. I mean, he can throw the ball too. He's just a good player. He wouldn't be there if he wasn't a good player, because Liberty went out and got him from Coastal. So I think, we just got to be aware of his skill set and all the things that he brings to the table. But at the end of the day, it's 11 on 11, not 1-on-1.
Yesterday, DJ also talked about just how versatile he's had to be as a nickel to sort of play in this defense. Mm-hmm. And we kind of saw that against Louisville, moving him out side in coverage and some of the plays where he came across the field to make tackles. Just how important is he to this defense at the nickel?
Oh, he's extremely important. I think versatility is everything. I mean, some calls he's a linebacker, some call he's a corner, some calls he's a safety. He has to know everything, and he's not just, his ability to do a lot of things makes us unique as a defense. And he's been awesome at learning it, and he's got a physicality to him, even though he might be considered a smaller player. He loves to run and hit, and that allows you to use him in a lot of different ways.
After you reviewed the Louisville tape, just what are some of the takeaways you had from that tape that had you really encouraged going into the rest of the year?
As a coach, you might focus a little bit more on the things that we got to get better at. But, they played really hard. I think 2 games through, the guys are playing hard. They're believing in what we're calling, and they're putting it to life. And when you see guys running and hitting and playing physical and attacking the football, I mean, that's all you care about as a coach.
Given that, what were the areas where you feel like where you kind of want to see improvement?
Yeah, I mean, 2 explosive plays can be the difference in a game, and we knew that going into the game. We knew that, they had a really explosive receiver and a really explosive back, and if they got out in space, they could be a problem. And, 2 times in a game where they were able to get that, and it cost us big time. So just learning from those experiences and making sure that we match our scouting report and don't allow those things to happen.